welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie and we are here for another episode of Maker Musings. Thank you so much for your warm reception of it on my first go. I've had this idea going for a little while and I just wasn't sure how I was going to make it happen. I don't really know. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Even now, so I started this channel November 2019, and even now it's February 2023. I still get nervous every time I hit publish. I'm not one that really, looks forward to public speaking, or I don't know. I'm an introvert. Not saying introverts can't have YouTube channels, because I think a lot of introverts actually probably have YouTube channels. But yeah, I don't know. It still makes me a little nervous, and I'm just excited that you're here joining me in this creative space. So Maker Musings is an addition to my YouTube channel. My other episodes generally have more of a structure to it, where there's like vlogs in the beginning. Then I go into like an intro live chat, finished projects, works in progress, like things like that. But I wanted to have something a little more of a casual, like chat and make type of scenario, and something that had more minimal editing on my end, because it does take quite some time, like behind the scenes. I feel like sometimes people see a video and they think, oh, it's 20 minutes, like just quick record and you're done. Well, it really isn't. And depending on how quick of an internet connection you may have, downloads, uploads, editing, whatever the case may be, it sometimes can take quite a while. So yeah, I wanted these types of episodes to be 30 minutes or less, and they will generally cover like frequently asked questions or things that I've been thinking about related to making, and maybe 3 topics max that may or may not relate to each other. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking about going with these. And they are topics that I generally have talked about a little bit here and there throughout my previous episodes, and I just wanted a spot where they could be more easily accessed, maybe. So especially with some of the questions that I get asked more often, I want to be able to direct people to a spot where they can just find that information versus me having to say it again and again. So yeah, so welcome to this casual space. I hope you enjoy your few minutes of time here. I have water today. It matches my shawl. I am wearing my half and half triangles wrap by Pearl Soho, and this one I've named Garden Bouquet. I'm not going to go into detail into everything that I'm wearing because it's talked about in previous episodes, and this episode is not about that. But yeah, so I have on a half and half triangles wrap. I also have, I think I have four makes on today. I have on my Odds and Ends cardigan by Tina Say. I have on underneath it my Rocket Tee by Tanis Lavelli. I think you can kind of see it's a V-neck tee. And I also have on vanilla socks in yarn by Woolens and Nosh. The heel is in a Knit Picks Hawthorne yarn. It's always kind of awkward raising your foot up to the camera, isn't it? But there we go. So that is all the knitwear that I am wearing on this chilly but sunny day. I believe it was like -10 Fahrenheit earlier in the morning, and by the time I took the kids to school, I think it was like maybe 3 degrees Fahrenheit. The kids were trying to figure out what they were going to wear to school because we had a warm-up earlier where they could maybe change into a jacket that was not as heavy, but then it's dropped again. So anyway, What were we talking about? Okay, so today I have 3 topics that are all related. Okay, back up. I wanted to put in a disclaimer about everything that I say here. And maybe it's not so much a disclaimer, but just a, reminder maybe. So, I am a human being. And I say that because I feel like sometimes when we say things on YouTube or really any social media, it doesn't seem to be as much of an issue when you're talking to somebody in person. Probably because you can't like replay that or go back to it and quote people or I don't know. But my point is that what I say now may or may not be what I believe or say 5 years from now. I don't know. Right now it is February year 2023. And these are musings, hence Maker Musings. So thoughts, and nothing is meant to be taken as the end-all be-all. Nothing is meant to be here to tell you what to do. It's never about telling you what to do. These are thoughts. These are ways to explore different ideas. And yeah, that's the purpose of these. And these are all topics of things that I have probably mentioned at some point or another in my other episodes that I've been recording since November 2019. And so I wanted to have a space where that information could be more easily referenced. And then if there are questions that people have that tend to be about the same things, then I can refer people also to these little mini episodes, mini chatty episodes. So yeah, okay. Now that disclaimer or reminder or note to self is done. Oh, I didn't tell you what I'm knitting on. I'm knitting on another half and half triangles wrap. And this one is my Dawn and Dusk one. And if you want to learn more about it, I would go to previous episodes. And if you are on Ravelry, in my Ravelry project pages, I always include the link and title to whatever episode I might have talked about it on. So I'll say if it was a work in progress at the time or a finished project. So let's talk about product and process mindset. I feel like everybody is some combination of both. And depending on a particular project, you may be more of one versus another. So I can't speak for you, but I will speak for myself here. I am in general more of a product maker. So what draws me to a project is what the end result is going to be. I choose projects based on how I see it fitting into my life and my lifestyle, and maybe there's a certain need in my wardrobe that it is filling. But at the same time, I need to enjoy the process. If I am not going to enjoy the process of making whatever it is, I'm not going to make it. I mean, we all have 24 hours in a day, and there are some commitments that we have to do, some that we need to do, some that we want to do, and how we divide up that time, well, if there's something that I'm just not going to enjoy doing that I don't have to do, I'm probably not going to do it. So, you know what, I should probably back up and mention what in general process versus product maker definitions are, just again in general. So in general, I think when people are referring to a process maker, they're talking about someone who really picks projects based on the process. So maybe they're going to learn a new technique, or maybe they'll never even plan on finishing the project, or maybe not the plan, but if they don't finish it, it's not really a big deal. It's the process that's enjoyable. Maybe they don't mind frogging, which is like ripping back a project over and over again. I do not enjoy doing that. I do not enjoy reworking things over and over again, even if I know the end result will be better. I'm not necessarily in something for just the process. I want the end result. And yes, I understand that if the end result isn't going to be what I want because I don't redo something, then that's obviously an issue. But but then that's something for me to weigh. Like, am I going to be okay enough with redoing that to get what I want? Or can I finish whatever I'm doing, maybe gift it to somebody else, and then like reknit a new one? You know, like there's just different avenues to think about. You know, those like, what do you call those diagrams? It's like yes, no, yes, no. If it's this, go to this. If it's this, go to this. So anyway, that's like the logic that would be going on in my brain. So yeah, I think for me personally, I have to enjoy the process to get to that end result. So in general, I would consider myself more of a product maker, but with a product maker with a need to have an enjoyable process. I don't know. I guess I don't need to label myself, but anyway, that's where I'm at with that. All right, second topic I would like to talk about is purchasing with a purpose. So I feel like, and there's so much you can talk about as far as purchasing with a purpose, but the part I wanted to talk about is related to knowing the grams and yardages of what you need to make what. So, of course, this is just in general, but knowing how much is a sweater quantity in general for you, for fingering weight, DK weight, worsted or Aran weight, on and onward, can be valuable information. Now, of course, it will vary depending on the gauge of the sweater, or if it's oversized, or if there's negative ease, or positive ease, or cropped, or long sleeves, or the list goes on and on. However, if you also have a queue of projects lined up, then you can be mindful of what materials you need to purchase to go with what project. And it might not even be shopping, what am I trying to say? And it might even be shopping from within what you have, but just knowing how much yarn you're going to need for something, I feel like can make a world of difference in how you organize your projects or how you purposely make purchases. And especially so during sales. So I feel like when there are sales, it's so easy to be like, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart, and you're done, right? Even in person, but especially online. However, if you have projects in mind that you are needing to pair with yarn, knowing how much you need ahead of time is going to be so, what's the word? Maybe less stressful, because you're not guessing. Most of the time when I make a pattern, I do not use the yarn that the designer used for their samples. Sometimes it's just a price range that I'm not interested in spending. Sometimes it's because I have certain yarns on hand that I think would make great substitutes. Sometimes I'm making lots of modifications, and yeah, there's just lots of different reasons. But I think in general, just knowing how many skeins or how many grams of yarn you need in whatever the weight of yarn that you're looking at is going to be really helpful. And you can just jot that down. If you use a project notebook or a project journal, it can be great to just kind of jot that down in the front or back or something to have that in mind. And one way, if you're not sure because you haven't made a lot of sweaters or you haven't knit a lot of socks or whatever the case may be, is check out some free patterns that have those yardages listed. So I would refer you to go to Tin Can Knits. They have a great selection of like beginner friendly patterns that have like a shawl, there's a cowl, there's a hat, there's sweaters. The flax sweater comes in like a fingering weight and a worsted weight. And for Tin Can Knits, the ranges go from baby through I think 60 something inches in chest circumference. And so you can check those pattern information listing things out, the information on yardage and sizing, and then get a good estimate of how much you might need. I personally don't love the idea of buying an extra skein just in case, because I don't mind playing yarn chicken. For me, I call it yarn management, calculated yarn management. And we could talk about that in a whole nother Maker Musings episode. But it's money. It's extra money to spend that you may not even need that yarn for. And I would just rather make modifications that are still within reason of what I think I'm going to wear, but not spend that extra money. And if you are even talking about like indie dyed yarn, I mean, that's a lot of money to spend on just in case. And so I would just rather not do that. To each their own. I'm speaking specifically for myself. If yarn chicken just is not something you want to go towards, get that extra skein if that works for you. I'm just saying personally, I prefer not to do that. I will make the modifications I need to make it work. So yeah, just knowing your yardage I think is really, really helpful, and checking out those free patterns by Tin Can Knits, or if you've knit previous other patterns, you know, just keeping in mind how much yarn you used for that can be really helpful. And that goes not just for garments, but I think even for socks. Like, I know in general, for me, if I'm knitting a fingering weight pair of socks, 75 grams works out pretty well for me. If I'm making shorter socks, 65 grams might work for me. If I'm going to knit DK weight socks at a decent length, I'll probably use the entire 100 grams of fingering weight yarn if I'm holding that double, or a full 100 gram of DK weight. Although in general, I feel like for socks, I don't usually use straight DK weight yarn. I prefer holding the fingering weight double. I just feel like it feels nicer. That's just what I prefer. Anyway, again, knowing your preferences, I think can really help organize the yarn that you have, but also help make purchases be more intentional, purposeful purchasing. Yeah, something like that. All right, third topic that I would like to talk about today is wearing what we make. So it kind of ties back into the process and product making, because if someone is primarily a process maker, they may not even plan on wearing whatever they're making. They may be making it for the sake of art, which is totally fine. Like I had mentioned, I make things for the purpose of using them, wearing them. To me, it's functional art. Yeah, so I've been asked before, oh, do you only wear your knitting when you are recording an episode? And I was honestly kind of taken aback by that, because I was thinking, like, why would I spend so much time and money into making something to wearing it only when I'm recording on YouTube? That just feels a little false, personally. I mean, if you do that, good for you. But for me, I'm like, that's not me, right? I make things to wear them, and honestly, I wear something I've made like every single day. Maybe not in the 2 months of summer, but even then, sometimes I might wear like shorty socks or something. But yeah, I wear something that I make pretty much every day, and definitely when it's chillier. Like today, I'm wearing 1, 2, 3, 4 items, and I'm not even outside. So if I'm outside, I would probably be adding on another hat and mittens. And so yeah, I do wear what I make. And another thing I remember someone saying is that they said, oh, I think this was like earlier on in the pandemic, when people were at home a lot more, and they said, well, I'm not going anywhere, so I'm not wearing my stuff. And even if I don't go anywhere, I still wear my stuff, because I'm not wearing it to show anybody necessarily. I'm wearing it for me. And so to me, it wouldn't matter if I was in a room full of people or not. I'm still gonna wear it because it makes me feel good, and I make for me as well. Like, I don't make to have content to share. I have content to share because I'm making stuff, if that makes sense. And so personally, I mean, I'm gonna wear it no matter what. It has nothing to do with whether I'm going anywhere. Yeah, so. And I also, and another thing to add to this is that I feel like I've heard a few people say, like, I'm sorry for wearing like the same thing more than once. Not me, I'm sorry, but saying that they're sorry if they're like wearing the same thing more than once. And I'm thinking, I thought we were making things so that we could wear them more than once. I mean, not to even get into the whole talk about slow fashion, fast fashion, or whatever, but like, I plan on making things that I can definitely wear more than once and hopefully last for several years, and possibly even have my children wear it if they want to, which they have, for things that I've made in the past that I've decided were either too cropped for me or just aren't my style. But we learn, and fortunately I have 2 young children that love everything that I make, and so they actually really want my odds and ends cardigan, but they would be swimming in it because the sleeves have so much like positive ease, and it's pretty long. The cardigan's really long, so for them it would like probably go down past their knees, but they still want it anyway. One of them told me it's her dream cardigan. It's got like all these pastel colors that are watercolory, and in general I'm not really like a pastel-y type of person, but one day she can have this cardigan because one day it'll fit her okay. But yeah, so I think part of wearing what you make might also have to do with like evaluating your climate, evaluating what's in your wardrobe, what's missing from your wardrobe, what you would like to add to it, and being realistic sounds kind of harsh, but kind of realistic, or aware, maybe aware is a better word, aware of what you'll actually wear. Again, if you're a process maker and you're just making it for the fun of it and that works for you, go for it. But if you're feeling like you're casting on something either just because everybody else is, or you feel like everybody else is, because really everybody else is not. I feel like sometimes social media can make it seem like everybody is doing something, but they're not. That's a whole nother topic, but I feel like just really evaluating what's behind you starting something and whether or not you're okay with it. Like if you're just casting something on because you feel like it, go for it. I mean, at least you've thought about it and that's why you're doing it, and you know that's why you're doing it, and if you're okay with that, go for it. If it makes you happy, go for it. But at the end of the day, if you are wanting to make something to wear, but then realize that's not something that you like to wear, I think personally I would like to know that earlier than later. Because once you make that investment in your materials and in the time, I just don't want to like be regretting it later. And yes, every process has its learning and all of that, but again, I'm just speaking in general here and from my own personal perspective. With that, cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time.